The United States of America has become the land of shortages, and well, it's really hard to see why not. Look, we've been outsourcing so much manufacturing from other countries. I mean, it's crazy that we're not producing these more at home, but I'm gonna show you guys just how bad things can become if our leaders don't realize our vulnerable position right now. Also, stick around until the end because the FDA is doing something that you need to know about. And believe me when I say this is extremely crucial, especially for our kids.
If you've recently struggled to get a prescription filled or buy certain over-the-counter medicines, you're not alone. By late spring this year, there were 309 ongoing drug shortages in the U.S., the highest in nearly a decade. Experts blame supply chain gaps, manufacturing delays, and spikes in demand for the shortages. But what does that mean for doctors, parents, and patients who are caught in the middle? Michael Ganio is a senior director at the American Society of Health System Pharmacists. Thank you so much for joining us. Michael, drug shortages are not that uncommon, but to have so many at one time is. What are some of the factors contributing to the situation?
Well, there are several reasons for drug shortages. What we've seen recently are some demand spikes, as you noted. There are weight loss medications used for diabetes. There's unprecedented demand for those. Attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder medications, commonly known as Adderall or Ritalin, those have been in short supply because of high demand. The other side of that is manufacturing delays, and sometimes it's a disruption due to quality. It's not a problem with the quality of the product, but it's a process issue that has held up production. And if anyone has heard of the ongoing oncology drug shortages, things we use to treat cancers, chemotherapy drugs, those have been caused because of some of these quality issues prohibiting release of the products. So really, there are a lot of different causes, and we've even seen geopolitical threats to the supply chain.
Now, you're asking, why aren't we talking about this more? And to be honest, I don't know. Now, if you ask me if anything is going to be running out in our home, especially medicine that we might need, you know for sure I've already got a plan to restock. So here's a question for you guys. Do you trust that government officials will be able to solve this shortage issue in time for the holiday season? Comment a quick yes or no on that one. And while I know that the terms trust and government don't really mix that well, you can trust that I'm one of the best sources of truth here on YouTube. So make sure to consider subscribing to the channel and smash the like button. Totally appreciate that, guys. All right, so getting back on topic here. Were you aware that we get a lot of our drugs from China, India, and Mexico? But don't get me wrong though, we are home to some of the biggest pharma companies in the world, and we have access to some very advanced drugs that some countries have to export, although that should lead to a very simple question. Why are we still seeing shortages, right? And I'm not the only guy that's asking this question. We got a lot of people in Congress doing the exact same thing.
The nationwide drug shortage is escalating, and now Congress wants to know why. About 1 in 3 American hospitals say they're now rationing prescription medications due to supply issues. And 99% of pharmacies saying they're struggling with shortages, with 57% reporting rationing. On Thursday, lawmakers from the House Energy and Commerce Committee holding a hearing trying to find the right prescription to get supply lines up and running again.
The fundamental economics of the generic drug market, specifically sterile injectable drugs, must be reformed. If we want a more stable pipeline of drugs.
Both Republicans and Democrats agree systemic reform is needed, but they're at odds over what steps should be taken first. Most Republicans want to give drug makers a financial incentive to strengthen domestic manufacturing for older generic drugs with slim profit margins, while Democrats blame at least some of the shortages on corporate greed.
Many of the chemotherapy shortages were caused by manufacturers choosing to drop their prices in an unsustainable attempt to gain market share.
Pharmacies are now asking for more help from the feds to help rebuild their stockpiles, calling for an all-options approach as we head into cold and flu season.
Oh, that's right. They were talking about this months ago as we head into this season, you know, when it becomes colder for many states. Not sure if they forgot, but I clearly didn't. Now they're asking the FDA for an explanation, and one of the reasons that they had said was something that I talked about a while ago, and that's the over-reliance on offshore manufacturing facilities. One of the main ones being China, and like, what happens if we get into deeper waters with them? You guys are for sure updated, especially if you follow the channel. that our president has been kind of goading China into a war. So what happens if they just suddenly cut us off? Can you imagine what kind of shortages we'll have then? But maybe the FDA can get us back on track, right? Well, remember when I told you guys at the beginning that the FDA was going to be doing something that you need to know? As it turns out, the FDA has a little known category called accelerated approval. And from the name itself, you should be able to tell that yes, it's for drugs to be approved quickly, even though only preliminary data was provided. So the reason, according to them, is because these are medications for those who are desperately ill and are in need, meaning that the demand is just too great for them to pass up. The problem is that many companies have used this method to push out drugs onto the market with little to no benefits for patients, meaning that the required studies haven't gotten to a point where they can actually prove that the drugs work as they should. Meanwhile, they're making billions of dollars as patients buy these off the counter. So to sum it up, we're seeing shortages and ineffective drugs at the same time. Like, I really wish I was making this stuff up, but the data's out there.
Since the pandemic eased, millions of Americans have had to deal with a number of drug shortages. For those with ADHD, it's been an especially difficult year as they and their families have struggled to get through ordinary daily routines. Stephanie Sy has that story.
Thank you for calling your H-E-B pharmacy.
Every month, Brett Hale calls all the pharmacies near his Conroe, Texas home.
Hi, I'm looking for Vyvanse.
Searching for the medication both he and his 15-year-old rely on to treat their ADHD.
Most of them are on back order. Let me see.
Hale has been scrambling for months.
One pharmacy actually scoffed when I asked, as if I had asked an absurd question.
That's because for over a year now, there's been a nationwide shortage of medications like Vyvanse, Adderall, and Ritalin, which treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Initially, it was a labor issue, but you would expect that would resolve pretty quickly.
Since then, there have been few answers, says the University of Utah's Aaron Fox.
The majority of details around drug manufacturing, including the country that it was made in, the factory that it was made in, and how much product that they're actually making, all of that is allowed to be a trade secret.
Which brings me to Fizer. A Fizer drug called Quilvent XR that's used for ADHD was distributed to children who were on Medicaid, even though it was known to fail quality control tests due to a flawed manufacturing process. Now, this is a very, very dangerous game, folks. And these are kids we're talking about, you know? I guess that's why the Attorney General in Texas is suing Fizer and their manufacturer, Tries Pharma, for allegedly defrauding Texas Medicaid.
Fizer knowingly distributed less effective ADHD meds to underprivileged children. That's according to the Texas Attorney General. The state is suing Fizer and another pharmaceutical company called Trees for knowingly distributing the drug Quilivant to children on Medicaid who have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, despite knowing that Quilivant was tainted through a manufacturing glitch. The suit also alleged that Fizer consistently failed to follow routine quality control tests. Patients' families complained that the drug was not working, and according to the suit, Fizer blamed caregivers and children instead of checking the medication's quality. The pharmaceutical company Trees, maker of another ADHD drug for children called Diana-Vel, is also being sued by the Texas AG. This separate suit alleges that Trees lied about their drug's effectiveness, thereby defrauding Medicaid and putting young patients at risk. Thousands of underprivileged children in Texas were given a, quote, adulterated Schedule II controlled dangerous substance. That's according to both lawsuits. Both companies have strongly denied the AG's claims.
So what do you guys think about this? Should pharma companies be made liable for pushing out medicine that aren't as proven as others? I mean, if that was the case, they'd be in a lot of trouble with the C19 stuff that they've given us, but nah, those went under the radar through fast tracking. But yeah, should there be more accountability when it comes to these drugs? Now, as always, guys, share your thoughts down below on this and everything that we talked about. And before I go, I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out. Keep safe, and I'll see you on the next one.